podcast. Aloha, everybody, get ready for your 303 Endurance podcast.
Welcome to episode 507 of the 303 Endurance Podcast. We're your hosts, coaches Rich Soares, April Spildy, and Lauren Brown. Thanks for joining us for another week of coaching questions, get gritty tips, and workout wisdom, and yes, a little fun. We are talking race reports and season reflections today. April and Lauren, how are you guys doing?
Well, it's always great to be here with you and Coach Lauren. It has been a crazy, awesome season, and I'm just looking forward to breaking it down with the both of you.
And I love being with you guys. I can't help but smile when we're together. So feeling great about the conversations that we're going to have. I cannot believe that we're at the tail end of the triathlon season, which is wild, but I'm excited to talk about what's gone on up to this point and what we've got left.
I mean, where did the season go? It was just starting. I was just
crazy.
in Omaha. Like, what happened?
I know. Wild.
Rich, we were just in Breckenridge doing the Breckie Biner.
Well, that's
that
right.
feels like it was just yesterday. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's gone by so fast, but it's been a really fun season. And yeah, you know, and it's always really good to, I think, to step back and reflect on it, because there's always some great takeaways. And that's going to be kind of our mission today is, you know, whether we're looking at a race or we're looking back at our season, what are some things we can take with us to make the next race and the next season even better? Let's give a shout out to our show sponsor, Vespa Power. Vespa Power Endurance helps you tap into steady, clean energy so that you can stay strong, focused, and in the zone longer. Vespa is not fuel, but a metabolic catalyst that shifts your body to use more fat and less sugar for fuel. Vespa comes in number of products, the CV25, the Junior, and the Concentrate. Different strokes for different folks. Hey, there's less sugar. You're going to get higher performance. You're going to get a faster recovery. There's a link here in the show notes. Use the discount code 303endurance20 to get 20% off of your very first purchase.
Hey, so Vespa was definitely stoking my fire on my race this weekend. I used both the CV25 and the Junior. Yeah, it got me over that last little bit, which I'll talk about here later. But in today's show, we are reflecting on racing, resilience, and the lessons that come when you push yourself to the edge. We are going to cover our biggest races this year and share our takeaways. In our Ask a Coach segment, we'll break down how to write a race report. That's not just a recap, but an actual tool for growth. So I'm looking forward to that. We have our Get Gritty tip, which is all about reigniting your why. Coach Lauren is going to break down the anatomy of a TriDot workout. We share these workouts, but we want to dig in a little deeper so you understand how to read them. And then we'll wrap things up with some questions I have for you two. I'll put you both in the hot seat, especially Lauren, because we have not put her through this gauntlet yet. But they are 5, fun, get to know you questions that peel back that curtain on our personalities, which I'm sure you've gathered are a little bit quirky, going beyond triathlon. So we're going to jump now into our announcements and news. Over to you, Rich.
Awesome. You know, I'm just going to come right out of the gate here and with announcements and news. And of course, probably one of the most newsworthy things that, you know, triathletes are paying attention to was the Ironman World Championship in Nice, France. We talked about this a little bit last week. You know, we've kind of gotten away from doing analysis on races and the pros and that sort of thing, but it was fun to watch. I actually was able to tune in right there at the end of the pro men's marathon and got to watch basically the podium come in, which was pretty exciting. Did you guys get a chance to watch it? I know we had a couple of our coach friends from our coach mastermind group, Coach Stefan and Coach K. What were your guys' thoughts about the race?
So I was like quickly checking the app in the morning because I had my race that same morning, and I was like, dang, I'm going to end up missing this whole thing. So I was waking up, checking where Coach K was, and by the time I was done with my race, they had all been wrapping it up since they were many hours ahead. So I caught some of the replays and the excitement of it, and it's just always amazing to see what is possible with these freaking splits that they pull out. And I feel like it's always like a new record, a new record, a new fastest split, and the Norwegians, man, way to dominate.
Wow, right? Way to show up and represent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Speaking
proud
of,
I was gonna say, I'm proud to acknowledge I got some Norwegian blood in here. Yeah, yeah, our crew definitely represented Norway and the Viking spirit. And yes, I enjoyed. I was actually getting ready to leave for the banana belt. So I had that playing as kind of like my motivation for my race. And it was kind of perfectly aligned because I got to see the finish right before I headed to the starting line. So it was such a cool like amp for an awesome day. So I loved it.
Yeah.
Lauren, does this have you stoked for Marbella?
Oh, I can't wait. And I'm super excited because I know, April, you just mentioned how Vespa was pushing you through, and I have my order ready to go. And for this training block leading up to Marbella and for the race, I'm going to be incorporating Vespa. And I'm just really, really excited to do as Ironman says and see that anything is possible. And yeah, I'm pumped.
Well, you've got to be really pumped because one of our next announcements, I really want to ask you about your race at Toughman 70.3 this weekend. Third female overall with a time of 5:24.18. What are you going to do when you're on Vespa?
I know. I know. It's going to be wild. It was a tough course, and I was doing it in a way to be able to prep for Marbella, really was what I was going into this race with the mindset of. And I'd actually spoken to Coach K before. He's like, hold off, you haven't been training with Vespa. And I'm like, oh man, I really want to try it now. But we know we don't try anything new on race day. So there's that. But again, I didn't really get to use anything out of the ordinary for my race prep. But for Toughman, it was my first 70.3 of the season. So I had just done Olympics and sprints up to that point. And my main focus going into Toughman, so it's called Toughman, let me say, because of the elevation. They changed the bike course a little bit, which I was kind of bummed about because it was supposed to be 4,400 feet of elevation gain, and it ended up coming in at about 3,000 on the bike of elevation gain. And then the run was just shy of 1,000 feet of elevation gain on the run. So it was still pretty freaking hilly. That run was a monster. It felt like at the mile 10 was just like boop, uphill. But prepping for it, knowing that that's what I was going into, I was upping my hill work, my heavy gear work, my strength training. So it was a good test, a good little teaser for Marbella.
That's awesome. How was the weather?
Oh my God. It was perfect. When I say perfect, I mean the water temperature was 70 degrees. So for me, it was wetsuit legal, which I was happy about, but it was so comfortable. It was a lake swim, and it got a little bit hot on the run, but it was like we might as well have been in San Diego. I feel like it was like 70, 75 and sunny. There wasn't too much shade, but for me, I can also race in the heat and feel pretty okay. It was wonderful. Like I couldn't have
That's
asked for
awesome.
better conditions.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
You just totally scorched it too, Lauren. Just bravo.
Thank you. Yeah, I honestly, I was really happy with the result. My goal going into it, like I said, was just prep for Marbella, come out of the race knowing a little bit more about, my nutrition strategy. Cause like I said, it was my first 70.3 of the season. So just wanted to dial that in. I wanted to mentally be prepared for running off the bike with a lot of hills behind me from the bike course. And I RaceX, I was like, there we go again, RaceX, so on point with what it was expected to do. And yeah, it was great. My only one gripe with this is that the run course ended up being 13.7 miles.
Oh,
And we didn't know
that's a
it.
nice
And then at the
bonus.
end, I was like, what is going on right now? And my friend who was racing with me, she was like, what the heck? That run was not 13.1. And that extra like half mile or so was like,
Brutal.
gosh, yeah, you gotta be kidding me. But it was all
They're
good.
not gonna give Toughman away. There's no way.
I was gonna
You're
say
gonna work
something's
for it.
got to ring here for the tough. It's the extra 0.5.
I thought I got lost for a second. I was like, did I go off course? What is going on?
Oh,
So, but
yeah,
yes, it was great and good times.
legit. Hmm.
Mhm.
We don't talk about RaceX very much, or we haven't really covered that a lot. And you just referenced RaceX. Do you mind telling our listeners a little bit about what RaceX is and how it's useful?
Absolutely.
Sorry to
So
put you on the spot.
RaceX is a tool that we get to use. It's a platform that is linked to TriDot. And so with RaceX, you're able to plug in the race. If it's not one that already exists within the platform, you can manually add in your race. You can upload the course file. So all of the information in there with elevation gain, the location is in there. So environmental normalization can come into play as well. RaceX will take into consideration your current fitness, what your background is, right? So we also know our swim, bike, run ages. It will take into consideration what your current, run dot, swim dot, bike dot scores are. Everything gets taken into consideration, and you are able to see what your predicted time is for each leg. You can also make adjustments. You can, if you're working with your coach, as to like how long is the transition going to take? Is my power output expected to maybe be a little bit different than what RaceX is estimating based on different types of, if you have other things going on? But it is pretty dang accurate for me. And again, as long as there's not things out of the ordinary. So it's not like, okay, well, there was a major storm that slowed everyone down, right? So that information is not included there, but it will give you a really good pacing strategy too. So on the bike, for example, you can open up RaceX and you could see, I was just reviewing this with one of my athletes where it's like, all right, at mile 10, you're going to see a 3% incline on the bike. This is what your power output should be at that point and what you can expect even your speed to be. So it really dials it in, and it allows you to have a really strong sense of confidence going into the race that if you follow the plan, you're going to come out with a certain time. And I think my RaceX time was literally, I think, almost 5:24. It was super close.
That's incredible. And you mentioned some really good features. And like you said, I mean, we're just scratching the surface here. We'll come back. I think this is a good topic. Maybe we tee this up here for one of our upcoming shows. Come back and really do a deep dive on this. I think people would find this to be pretty fascinating.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, April. Banana Belt. Dang it, the biggest mountain bike race you've ever done. Tell us about this thing.
I look like a giant banana too. I'm wearing the race shirt.
That's a great race shirt.
Spoiled. Yeah, thank you. A spoiled banana. I'll just say that. No, it was epic. There's a reason why they call longer duration mountain bike races epics, because it's such an adventure. It's almost like Frodo carrying the ring to Mordor to change in the process. I promise you don't come out the same person on the other side. So let me break it down for you as far as my race prep. So Rich knows especially that my word of the year has been courage. And one of the things that I wanted to challenge myself with is stepping outside of triathlon to give mountain biking specifically a try, to get better at it, to try things I've never done before, to grow on my tactical skills, on being able to climb efficiently. And all those things absolutely came to fruition, with the banana belt being kind of the culmination of all the work that I'd put into this year. And this specifically was my longest duration race. It was 35 miles, which that might sound shorter to the layperson who hasn't done a mountain bike race, but It's not. So I want you to think like going 5 miles an hour is your top speed versus 25. And that's just kind of the way it is, right? You're ascending and descending some really hard stuff and different types of terrain, and that's what this was. So the race itself was in Salida, Colorado, and it's along one of the historic trails, the Rainbow Trail, and it just has this amazing feel to it. And I come to find out that I didn't realize Banana Belt kind of stood not only for the course itself, but just the people. It kind of has this eclectic mix of people, and they're called like Banana Belt bikers and stuff. So it's actually really cool. It has this really amazing vibe, and I loved it. So prepping for the race was amazing. It was absolutely a great first taste at long distance mountain bike racing. And between one of the great things that came away from this was between the time that I did my first race rehearsal, which was about a month prior to the race day, to taking on the course, I grew so much. Like the amount of growth that occurred was the difference between I don't know if I can do this to hell yes, I've got this. And yeah, Rich, you were a big part of that.
I was going to say, would you mind sharing with our audience some of the things that you changed, both in terms of your equipment and your pacing and your strategy?
Absolutely. So I found out as I was going through the race rehearsal, you can look at an elevation profile and think you know what it is, but until you get on the course and experience it, it's a completely different thing. And one of the things that I did not know was the first about 10 miles leading up to the trail was gravel road into a fire lane, which if you've done mountain bike riding and racing, that can be pure hell. It's just such a strain on it's like trying to ride a paved road with a mountain bike tire, right? So you're just kind of like slogging it out. So I knew after doing that race rehearsal the first time, because a lot of the time I was hiking the bike because I didn't have the right gearing and I didn't have the right tires for it. And it felt really demoralizing. Like there were moments where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. What did I sign up for? This is insane. And Coach Rich and I talked about it in our debrief of my first race rehearsal. We just came down to the decision that, hey, I don't have the right tools. It's not that my fitness isn't there, it's that I don't have the right tools for this. So going in with that approach, it reinvigorated me. I ended up changing my front chain ring from a 32 to a 30, which absolutely made such a huge difference for my climbing. I ended up not having to hike the bike at all. In that first part, when you go from like hiking it for almost a mile to not having to do it at all, that's a huge change. And then just feeling very confident that I had the ability to master this and stay within myself so that I wasn't completely shattered by the time that I got to the more technical parts or even the end of the ride. Those made a massive impact in how I performed on the day. So
Super proud of you. That's amazing.
uh,
Just the growth, it almost didn't matter that you finished the race. I mean, of course it did,
yeah,
but just watching the transformation in terms of your confidence level
yes,
from that first to, the night before the race,
yeah. Just knowing I had
180.
it right. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And I also changed the tires too. So I went from like a aggressive, like medium aggressive tire to more of a racing tire. And that again, just was everything I needed to have the rubber on the road, if you will, but enough for me to be able to maneuver around very quickly. And it like the change in difference, I'll tell you on a specific loop that I usually do, the Falcon Trail on Usafa. I took 15 minutes off that trail in just testing out that new gear. And I was like, yep, this is right.
Yeah,
Just because I had better gearing and better tires.
it's
It's
amazing.
amazing. Awesome. Woohoo.
Yeah, thanks, teammates.
Well, we've got a lot of Grit to Greatness racing still happening. You want to give a shout out to Sarah?
Absolutely. So one of our athletes. She's been a phenomenal athlete. She's been with me just over a year now. That's Dr. Sarah Barr. She is racing her first Ironman branded 70.3 at Ironman 70.3 New York. She has put in just a tremendous amount of work working on her bike power and her swim stroke specifically over the past year. And she absolutely deserves this finish line. She deserves a breakthrough performance. And we just want to send her all of our love, our well wishes, and remind her to take it one stride, one stroke, and one step at a time.
That's awesome. And we're talking about season reflections here, but the season is not quite over. We still have a lot of racing coming up. I know that we've got Chris has got a sprint race, just a little kind of tune up that he's doing this weekend, but we've got a bunch of people doing Ironman California, October 18th. Got Caroline, Stephanie, and Paul. Amazing. When's Marbella, Lauren?
Marbella is November 8th. And then Kristen is doing Augusta, September 28th. And then Laura, one of my athletes, she's doing La Quinta in December.
Amazing. And then we've got Max Davidson doing the New York City Marathon in November, and Chris doing the Ironman 70.3 Florida Haines City on December 13th in April.
Yeah, we cannot forget Sasha Fierce is going to Marbella as well. So Coach Lauren, you'll definitely be linking up with her. She's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait.
You guys are going to rip each other's legs off.
It's going to be the best. It's going to be the best. Oh,
too fun. All right. Well, man, good luck, everybody. Happy racing. We're in your corner.
Mm-hmm. We are definitely cheering you on. And that kind of is perfect because we have our next sponsor for our Ask a Coach section, and that is Grit to Greatness Endurance Coaching. So off season doesn't mean off track. At Grit to Greatness Coaching, we use TriDot and RunDot to keep your training purposeful, efficient, and fun, even when racing feels like it might be far away. With personalized workouts and cutting-edge analytics, you will build a stronger base and come back sharper than ever. Try it free for 2 weeks, then for as low as $14.99 a month after that. You can sign up today through our coach links in the show notes. And let's make this your strongest season yet.
You bet it is going to be. And, it's going to be your best season, not only because, you're signing up with Grit to Greatness, but you are going to be doing the right things. We are going to be talking today, Ask a Coach, our Ask a Coach segment. We are diving into a powerful tool for growth, writing your race report. It seems like it might not be a growth tool, but it is. Whether you have crushed your goals or hit some bumps along the way, having a well-crafted race report isn't just a recap, it's a roadmap to your future success. We encourage our athletes to treat race reports as both a reflection and a learning opportunity. And here's how to write one that goes beyond the storytelling and becomes a strategic tool for your improvement. I'm going to kick us off, guys. And we're going to just go through these kind of one by one. And I'm going to ask for Coach April and Lauren your input on each of these, okay? Pre-race context, obviously, this is just, think about this as being kind of in a form. In fact, maybe we can even make this a downloadable.
Good idea.
How about that? Okay, we'll figure out a way to get this as a downloadable on our website. Watch for that in our social media posts. Pre-race context, obviously, what race was it? The name, the location, the distance. If you're using TriDot, you've probably put this into RaceX because this is going to be what derives kind of what the overall demand is going to be for the day, being the location, obviously the distance, but that terrain, the elevation, all of the environment normalization things that Coach Lauren was just talking about. You're going to put in your goals. Again, RaceX will do this for you. It's a good place to put in your goals, your time, your placement, your qualification, execution goals. Really, that's a great place to start. How do you want to execute? That's one thing that you can probably control. Qualification, placement, really hard to control because that's other people controlling those things. What was your training like leading up to the race? How solid was it? if you look back and you're seeing, oh, my plan to actual bars in my training are lined up perfectly, you're probably in good shape. If you've missed some workouts, note that. It's actually pretty good to note that, because that might explain some of the performance that happens. Same thing with your taper. Did you taper well? Were there any injuries? How was travel? Did you arrive at the last minute? Did they lose your lug? Those little details can really help inform what happened during race day, including nutrition changes. Coach Lauren, I'm going to start with you. What's your thought on this?
So something else to point out with RaceX, now I'm going to be harping on it today, is that you also, when you enter a race into RaceX, can put if it's an A, B, or C race. So that's something else that you might want to think about going into the race, and when you're reflecting even on the execution, and your taper might look different depending on the type of race that it is. And TriDot and your coach will also adjust what your taper might look like depending on the priority of the race. And then something else that I was thinking about with pre-race, so like mentally, where are you at leading into the race, which might go in line with different stressors. But I know I had a race one year where the person I was supposed to be racing with had a loss in their family. They backed out at the last minute. The weather forecast looked terrible. The water was like in the upper 50s. And so mentally, I just remember going into that race like, I don't even want to do this race. I don't. And I flipped it, and I was able to flip it. And I actually had a really good day out there. But it's something to think about too, is what was your mental state like? And then were you able to flip it? How'd you flip it? Just because that might be another strategy you can use in the future.
Love it. Coach April.
Yes, and I would just add knowing the why for this race. Why did you sign up for this? Like when I think about the banana belt, I picked a very specific reason as to why I decided to commit to that duration and that level of grit. And I'm sure there's some excitement with a new season, and you might be just like throwing down race entries. I don't know who has time for that, because that's a lot of money, but knowing why you're committing to something versus just putting your name on a start list, I think is also a really great motivator, and it helps remind you the reasons why you're putting in dedicating time, money, and energy into this race specifically.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think we asked a couple of times, was your why still intact after the early
Mm-hmm.
race rehearsals, right? Remember we had a
Mm-hmm.
couple of those
Yep.
conversations.
Yep. That
Yeah, great,
was absolutely brought me right back in line.
great pre-race context. I've got another question for you both. I think that this is also a relevant consideration, and that is the female menstrual cycle in terms of the timing with your race. Talk about that. I mean, is that a consideration?
I'm going to say it, I don't know that it necessarily is a consideration with the race. You might want to note it, because to a certain extent, yes, you can maybe coordinate things, but you also want to be able to live life, do the races you want to do, and understand that you might feel differently energy wise, emotionally, physically. And that's important to note. But I don't know, I wouldn't say it should change your plan. It's just another thing that's important in this race recap, or race report rather, because you can have that as information, and it helps you manage your expectations.
Yeah, I think that's right on, Lauren. I also, knowledge is power. The more that you do recognize the patterns in your cycle, the more that you can prep for the highs and the lows. And of course, there's individual differences. Some folks might have super highs, some might have super lows, and it might actually require that level of detail or attention to detail on what your race season will look like. But for the majority, I would say just having that fundamental or functional knowledge of your cycle and how that plays into your energy and your prep is very important, and I think that can be a great tool to have. So
Cool.
great question, Coach Rich.
I went off script a little bit. All right. Race day breakdown. Of course, we're going to look at the numbers, right? What was our time for the swim? What was our time on the bike, time on the run compared to RaceX and the predicted times? But also, really spend some time. I think this is, and when you're in the race, it's kind of nice to think about this even before your race because, anticipate wanting to pay attention to how did you feel? You know, how did your pacing feel? How was your like on the swim? You know, how did that swim start go? Did you feel like you positioned yourself well? What was your pacing? How was the sighting? Did you choose the right goggles? Did you need a stronger tint or less tint? Um, talk about positioning on the bike. Did you execute the power to plan? As Coach Lauren was talking about in RaceX, you can actually see your segments. You can actually break them down into pretty small segments, and it can be telling you what your target power is on that particular pitch on the course. How are you doing against your target heart rates, or how did you do? Did you notice decoupling happening during the race, which is your heart rate going higher at a steady power or your power dropping at a steady heart rate? And how did you manage that? Whether it was, you're feeling some fatigue and losing some power, were you fueling and hydrating right? Same thing on the run. Were you able to execute to your plan pace? Did you follow the plan? And it's easy to get carried away, but a good strategy is to build into your pacing and your power, especially on longer races where you really do need to pace yourself. And then, how did those transitions go? Did you have the time that you want? Did you execute the way you want? Any mishap happen? Did you have an epic fail on the bike mount or dismount or, anything like that? Coach April, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I was looking at this, and one of the things that I really like about these questions is none of these are coming across as judgmental or like, what did you do wrong, right? So one of the things I would add is what was the voice, right? What was the internal dialogue that was happening during race? And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that in performance evaluation, but I do think it's important to just ask objectively what were the streams of thought or consciousness that were happening during the race.
I would also note what was the weather like. That might be something that will be important when you look back. And was it raining? Was it windy? Was it extremely hot? Did you prep for that? And also for the swim, especially if you're an adult onset swimmer like myself, was it a wetsuit legal swim? So did that impact your body positioning or your pace? And then the other thing that came to mind were how you mentioned, Coach Rich, about the run and with managing fatigue and mental focus. I find this happens to me often, especially on the bike or on the run when like it's like I almost forget sometimes that I'm in a race and there's not enough. If you're at a point on the run or on the bike where it's a little bit lonely, if there's some separation that maybe has happened, were you able to maintain focus on the task and what might have helped you maintain focus? Because when you enter some of those parts of a race that aren't as busy, depending on the course and the race itself, it can be hard to stay dialed in. So that's something that I even find with myself.
Yeah, love that. And that staying focused is really a big part of execution, you know? And you're right. It is easy to lose your focus, start daydreaming, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute. I'm like, my watts are down by 50 watts, or,
I'm racing.
I'm just jogging here. The worst is I've actually had someone in a marathon say, "You look like you're just out for a Sunday jog." And I thought at first, I'm like, does he mean that I look like I'm comfortable, or no, I'm really not pushing very hard. That's what he really means. I'm not racing, I think that's a big part of, kind of the execution or evaluating your performance is, did you execute, and were you really present during the race? I think it's a really good question to ask yourself. Of course, there are the time goals. There are the goals of, qualification. Did you get that, did you get that roll down slot, or did you just end up flat on the podium like Coach Lauren here? What went well and what surprised you? What were the things that happened that maybe you didn't anticipate? That is an exceptional, that is where wisdom comes from. That's where life lessons come from. That's where experience comes from. Don't miss those opportunities. Write those down. Those are really important ones. And then kind of what was, evaluate your performance mentally, how not only were you paying attention, but how were you able to control your thoughts? I think one of you just mentioned that a minute ago. How are you able to control, the thoughts that are going on in your head, and when those, and there will be dark times for sure, but how prepared are you, Coach Lauren? How about this one to you first?
I love this part where you get to reflect. And I say this often that triathlon racing is like a mirror to life, oftentimes, where, again, like Coach April was saying with doing the banana belt, and it's like you grow, you learn, you change. And I think being able to take as much away from the experience as possible, the good, the bad, the ugly, the gratitude. I think 1,000% there always has to be in there things that you're grateful for, things that went really, really well. And I mean, did you thank the volunteers on the race course? Make a mental note of that. And if you didn't, you should make sure you do it at the next race. But like, those are little things that I still think are important to reflect on. But I love it. I think what surprised you, that's always fun because there's always something you're not going to expect. And you can help another athlete. You can help, you know, your own athletes. So I think performance evaluation and those questions are spot on.
Yeah, I really don't have anything else to add to that other than the framing of the question, what surprised you, is super important for this conversation, I would say, because that can go either way. It's a learning opportunity, right? So what surprised you? So you have another tool in the kit to help you so you're not so surprised next time. And if it's a good thing, like, yeah, you want to take note of that and pat yourself on the back. Like, hey, I didn't expect this and it went better than I imagined. And I learned something new about myself. So this is really great. I absolutely love this as well.
It's awesome. I'm going to blend these next two topics together: lessons learned and actionable takeaways. This is kind of a little bit of a recap of some of the things we've talked about. Like, what would you do differently next time? That lesson learned. Okay, what would you do differently to avoid that mistake or make that a better situation going forward? Were there any gear issues? That's a great one, right? Boy, you know, it happens, right? We don't charge you know, our Di2, or, we, overinflate our tires, or, we make a nutrition mistake there. The mistakes will happen. Take note of those. Those are opportunities to turn things around the next time. Mental strategies. Did they hold up under pressure? What specific changes what would you change in your training and race strategy the next time? Are there skills that you still need to develop? You know, maybe you got a little surprised with avoiding an obstacle on the bike course or a pothole or something like that, and you hit the pothole. Okay, well, what kind of bike handling skills do I need to avoid that the next time? The old bunny hop. You know, eh, just a good thing, what can you take away to the next race? I'm going to ask both you, Coach April and Coach Lauren, your races this past weekend. What was one thing each of you took away that you're carrying forward to your next race?
I'm going to go. You literally just spoke on it, but for me, it is bike handling and being okay on like a 180 turn or going downhill, not knowing exactly what the pavement looks like. And I may have been riding a little bit more cautiously because I had a little spill the week before. So maybe I was a little extra nervous, but I know for myself, I can gain time by turning faster and like having better cornering skills and being a little bit better at, or more confidence, I should say, with maneuvering around potholes, debris, things that are in the road. And I did want to say, when it comes to like actionable takeaways, if you can find an actionable takeaway that you could put into practice immediately, that should also be a goal, where the sooner you can start practicing it while it's fresh in your mind and you're still feeling maybe a little vulnerable around it, like, do it then. Don't wait.
Yeah, I would say that my takeaway from this experience was more about the mental fortitude that I needed to stay in it. One of the things that I caught myself doing was, I wouldn't say I was going too dark, but there were questions. There were questions that came up as to, why am I doing this again? And do I have enough energy to make it to the end of this sucker with as much enthusiasm as I had starting? So I really came away with the phrase "look for the good" as a takeaway, because there was a moment at the very end of this race that was the best moment of the entire day, which Rich and I talked about it. There was a comment that one of the, unbeknownst to him, I don't think he was thinking about what he was saying, but he made a rude comment to me. And it kind of, there was a point where I actually had tears in my eyes, and I was in the last 5 miles, and I was just like, I've had it. I'm done with this. Right. And then in that glorious moment, I had this, after the tears wiped away, there was a flow that I entered, because the back half had this amazing trail that I'm actually like dreaming about going back to. But it was the last 10 minutes of my ride. I just achieved this state of flow that it very rarely happens, that you get all things lined up where you're just flying. It felt like I was literally flying. And it just was like, okay, if I would have taken myself out and missed this last back half, this would have totally, it would have, I would have missed the whole point. So to me, it was absolutely worth it to be able to get out of that, woe was me pity party that I was in, to have that flow moment at the very end, to remind myself too that I love this. I love it so much, and it's worth it. So,
Coach April, Coach Lauren, thanks for helping us break this down. Why this matters, folks. Reflection is a cornerstone for improvement. Your race report is that place for you to really kind of, show some self-awareness, make some data-informed decisions, and continuous learning. It's not about what happened, it's about why it happened and how you're going to grow from it. So use your race report, start a conversation with your coach, your training partners, or your community. Share your wins and struggles. You never know who you will inspire or who might offer you a game-changing insight. How about that?
love it. Bravo. Go, coach. And that's actually kind of perfect for our Get Gritty tip, which is all about, when we talked about earlier with the preseason or pre-race decision, is understanding your why. And as we're getting closer to the back half of this year, we are officially in it now. We want to talk about the importance of reigniting that why. And it might have changed. It might look a little different from when you started this year, or when you started your multi-sport goals. And that's why it's important to do this reflection regularly. But as we all know, triathlon is much more than swim, bike, run. For many of us, like Coach Lauren shared, it's a journey of purpose, growth, and transformation. It often mirrors itself in our other areas of life. It gives us structure, goals, and a sense of identity. But what happens when that fire dims? When that person says that awful thing on the course and you're like, man, I don't know why I do this. Or when those early mornings feel heavy and the finish line feels further away. Our Get Gritty this week is to find the why that's going to reignite that passion, to reignite your love of this sport, and why we're here even talking about it tonight, right? Because it is so incredible for our lives. So I'm going to start us off with the understanding that losing your why is very normal. It's a very normal process. We have highs and lows, and every athlete, whether it's a beginner or an elite, hits a point where motivation fades. Motivation is one of those things that is fickle and fleeting at times. Life shifts us, goals change. That spark that once fueled your training might flicker or go out entirely, and that's okay. That isn't failure. It's actually a sign, it's a signal. It's a moment to pause, reflect, and realign.
I love that. So, moving on from there and talking about rediscovering your purpose, I love, love, love being able to dig into my why or an athlete's why. It is so important to keep you going. And I want to share a process that can help you reignite your why. And like Coach April said, your why can change, and that's totally fine. So, step one, reflect honestly. So, ask yourself, why did I start? What did triathlon give me? What do I need now? So, journaling is a practice I stand behind wholeheartedly. So, journaling or talking with a coach or a training partner can help uncover deeper truths. I always say when you're trying to figure out your why, ask it 7 times. When you say why, ask again, why, ask again, why. And you might come to a point where you're like, holy smokes, I have a different why. And I just needed to dig and ask it 7 times. So reflect honestly. And then step number 2, reframe your goals, right? So maybe it's not about racing fast anymore. Maybe it's about community, which we love community over here. Come join us if you're curious. We've got a great ambassador program going on if you need some community, but maybe it's about community, health, adventure. Just try to maybe shift from solely those outcome-based goals, like you want to land on the podium, you want a PR, and think about process-based goals. I love process-based goals. Think about, consistency, joy, connection, or even the goal of completing, 3 workouts with above a 70 score, right? So something that's a little bit more of a process as opposed to the actual outcome after the race. Third step would be to explore new formats, which again, Coach April talked about earlier with switching to gravel. So maybe try a gravel triathlon or an aqua bike, a trail run, a relay. I've been kind of curious about doing that maybe next year, but step outside the traditional mold because new formats can reignite your curiosity and challenge you in a fresh way. Fourth step, maybe focus on one discipline, right? So maybe you love biking and you want to dial it in and really see what can you do with your FTP this season, right? Or maybe you want to focus on doing like cycling events. It's another great challenge. And if you want something simple and you want to focus maybe on open water swim races or run focused and have that be your season, do it. Do what makes your heart happy and that brings you joy, because that is the purpose of endurance sports. And specializing can bring clarity and a renewed passion. So don't feel like you have to be stuck on the idea of specifically doing just a triathlon. And then the last step would be try something completely new, right? So don't even think about swim, bike, run specifically. So maybe it's ultra running or bike packing or even like rucking. That's something that I've looked into. There's a lot of different things out there, Spartan races. There's so many different things that can challenge you. And it's all, again, amazing communities of people that are in this space. So try something new. Sometimes reigniting your why means stepping into a whole new arena of endurance. So give that process a go.
Yeah, I love that. And when you're trying something new, it's kind of hard sometimes because, you're going from this kind of area. I'm pretty competent at what I've been doing all this time. And now all of a sudden you're a beginner again. I felt like a total noob when I did the Xterra Lori because it was the first Xterra I've ever done. I felt like, it was pretty intimidating because, it wasn't my comfort area. And that's where it really is important to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset, you have this belief that you're capable, you just can do what you do today. that, I'm not a good cyclist, or I'm not a mountain biker, or I, you know, cross country skiing in a triathlon. I could never do that. You know, step away from that kind of thinking. Really open yourself up. You can do pretty much anything that you decide that you really want to do. If you have purpose around this, um, you know, you know, find your why, and it doesn't have to be static. It will evolve with you. Who you are today is not who you were 10 years ago. Who you're going to be in 10 years is not who you are today. Stay open, stay curious, stay courageous, right, April? And ask hard questions and be brave enough to follow the answers. Final thought: feeling stuck, burned out, or disconnected from the sport, step back, reconnect with your values, explore those new paths as they come to you. Don't force it. And remember, grit isn't supposed to be a grind, it is chasing your purpose with passion and consistency, and never giving up. It does not have to be a grind. It can be a great learning experience.
Give
Love
me
it.
applause on that one. That was a good wrap up.
Yeah.
All right, should we jump into
Well,
the workout of the week?
you take it away.
All right, and I'm thinking that maybe I'll break it up a little bit so we can all kind of chime in here with the workout of the week if you guys are game with that. So the workout of the week, we are going to be talking about the anatomy of a TriDot workout. So instead of just telling you the workout, we're going to break it down piece by piece, why it's structured the way it is and how it helps you train smarter, not harder, starting with the warm up. So something I do want to point out, when you look at a TriDot workout, there is purpose behind everything. So if you don't have to cut it short for some, or if you had to cut it short for some reason, fine. But there's a reason for the warm up, for the main set, and the cool down. So sit tight. We're going to dive into all of them. I'll start with the warm up, and then Coach April, if you want to take the main set, and Coach Rich, the recovery intervals. We'll kind of bounce it around. Sound good?
Perfect.
Excellent.
Perfect. All right, sweet. So starting with the warm up is prepping the engine. So I'm going to give an example of what a warm up might look like if you were jumping into a bike session. So your warm up it typically looks like, I should say, a 10-minute warm up where the majority of the warm up is going to be at zone 2. You'll likely see some variation of spin ups in there. So maybe 3 by 30 seconds of spin ups where you're getting your cadence up to about 115 RPMs, and then 3 by 1 minute at zone 4. The purpose behind the warm up: don't skip the warm up. Zone 2 gets the blood flowing, the muscles are ready without burning energy too early. The spin ups are a great way to wake up the neuromuscular system. So you want your legs to be responsive, you want to get that cadence. And then doing those short bursts of just 1 minute in zone 4 will really help prime your body for the harder intervals ahead, like doing practice swings before a golf shot. You do not go up to the tee box. You shouldn't, and just swing right away, right? You want to do a couple of swings, maybe hit up the driving range. So this is another way to look at it. It's kind of like preheating the oven before baking. You're not going to throw in the cookies into a cold oven and have it warm up with the cookies in there.
I like that.
And
Let's see if we
you
can
need
get
to
that
know,
analogy going.
yeah, and you need to know how to bake at altitude. Awesome, Coach Lauren. We're going to move into the main set, which is building that engine. So we got it warmed up, we got it revving. Now we need to build it. So let's take it to the back to the bike workout. Thinking about this could be an interval of 5 by 5 minutes at zone 4 with a 2-minute recovery. And we're trying to maintain that effort at each 5-minute interval. Zone 4 equals threshold. It's that red line between sustainable and unsustainable. You're definitely in a line of uncomfortability, but you're not to the point where you are wanting to throw in a towel. Repeated 5-minute chunks build durability right at that threshold pace where the biggest fitness gains happen. The key isn't the first interval, but it's how strong you hold that last one. Just a note to highlight: you want to make sure that consistency, right? We hit that consistency, it's king. If you go too hard, too early, you'll blow up late. The benefit is in finishing strong.
Yeah, totally. Well, and then that's going to take us to those rest intervals in between those, those main set intervals, right? Where you've got the focus is on that, higher intensity to really get that dosing at the higher intensity and those adaptations. But then you need to do those recovery intervals. And this is an active rest with purpose. This is not a full on recovery where you're catching your breath. This is about teaching your body to clear lactate while it's still moving. And in this workout snippet, we're talking about, it might be a 2-minute rest interval or recovery interval at zone 2 between each of those higher end intervals. But it could also be in some of these workouts can also be tricky, right? It might only give, you might be only able, it might only give you a recovery down to zone 3 in some cases when we talk about the over under workout. You remember that one,
Mm-hmm.
guys? And it's teaching your body again to clear lactate, take a little bit of the load off, because that's going to be a real like real life race situation.
Yes.
So, think about, like walking between rounds in a boxing match. You're still moving, but you're just preparing for the next punch.
Love that. I know, we've got so many good analogies in here. So the balance of the time is going to be an aerobic filler. So again, if we're sticking with the bike example, you will have, whether it's an hour bike ride, a 2-hour bike ride, 3-hour, the balance of the time is going to be in zone 2 after you get those threshold efforts or whatever the efforts are for that workout. And you want to stay in zone 2. You don't want to be dropping below zone 2 where you're, again, like not staying focused on what you're doing. You want to be mindful that you're maintaining the cadence, which we're going to go into, or April will go into. But the breakdown of this balance of time in zone 2 is that it's going to keep the total workout volume right. So you want to make sure that you're hitting the amount of time that you're going to be training. It helps build aerobic endurance without adding unnecessary stress. So this helps with avoiding or limiting the risk, I'll say, of overtraining, right? You're going to still be working, but not at this high level. And it fills in the hour again with quality instead of junk miles of either going too low intensity or just pushing it too high into that zone 3, which can be a tricky spot to fall in.
Mm. Yep, good stuff, Coach Lauren. And this next point, the cadence focus, this, I think a lot of people do tend to slough this off, and this is the fine print, if you will. This is the stuff you want to take that next level, focus on your cadence. So our workout note is when we're talking about those zone 4 efforts, we want to aim for that 80 to 90 RPMs, which absolutely is hard, but it's what's going to help us maintain that efficiency. And then for those zone 2 efforts, we want to aim for that 90 RPM. So we're flushing out that lactate, like Coach Rich talked about. Cadence really does target efficiency. And a lower cadence in zone 4 can strengthen the legs and simulate climbing, but we also want to be able to hold zone 4 at a higher cadence as well. So being able to transition between those and know how those can work within our different gradients and the different goals that we're seeking is key to that fine print. So understanding how to use cadence for those specific reasons is absolutely going to bring that efficiency up to the next level.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's weird because those slower RPMs are actually really training those fast twitch muscle fibers, and those higher RPMs are really training those slow twitch fibers. But you need that good mix of both to be able to be a well-rounded athlete and have the power when you need it. Big takeaways today: warm up primes the body and the brain. Threshold intervals build sustained power. Recovery teaches the body how to reset under pressure and clear lactate. And zone 2 keeps endurance steady. Cadence helps keep our cadence focus sharpens technique. And there is your anatomy of a TriDot workout.
Good job, coaches. Proud of us. Teamwork. It's like we know what we're doing.
I know, and we don't even, it's just like natural, it
Yeah,
just
I love
flows.
it. All right, it's
Oh
the
boy.
moment we've all been waiting for. Okay, these questions are truly kind of to spark some serious ingenuity and to really, again, get to know you a little bit more. So we have introduced this as a segment before. It's one of my favorite segments. But with you, Coach Lauren, we want to take you a little deeper here. So we're going to ask a few fun off the wall questions that have nothing to do with triathlon and everything to do with you as a person. It's our chance to peel back that layer and let us see your quirks, your stories, and laughs that make us who we are. So, are you both ready for the first question?
You
Ready?
betcha.
Okay. You betcha. That is a Minnesota slang right there. I like it. Yeah. All right. Number one. If you could drop into any decade just to experience it, which one would you choose and what's the first thing you would do?
Am I going first? I'll go first.
Go ahead, Lauren. Whoever has their answer can go ahead.
So I don't really have a great answer for this, but my brain goes to movies. So this is like not going to be an historically accurate answer. But like I go to like Greece or to Dazed and Confused. So
Oh, yes.
so I love like if I could go back in time to either of those and like Dazed and Confused, I just think of like last day of school, going to a party, and it just being
All right.
best line, right? So I love the feeling that I get of it. Like they're like misbehaving, but not like they're just totally being fun
Free.
kids, and life just seemed. I don't want to say better, but I mean,
Slower.
It seemed like a better place to be. And like my brain went right to Greece, but then I was like, no, Dazed and Confused. So that I don't know if that's really the right answer, but it was like the 70s. So yeah.
That was a great answer, Lauren.
I love that. I love the 70s too. I think
Yeah.
I would drop into the 70s too and buy some Apple stock for sure. But no, in all seriousness, much more personal to me. I probably would have gone back into the 80s, would have been back in a freshman in high school, and I would have not said no to the track coach when he asked me to join the track team. I think that would have made a real big difference in my trajectory as an athlete. It might have got me into this sport sooner. So how about that?
That's good. That's really good. I think I'm going to the 90s. I love the music of the 90s. Yeah, of course, that was when I was, I'm a elder millennial, so the formative years of the 90s, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Rich, as far as like kind of directing my path a little bit more, right? But I love the culture of the 90s too. Like there's reasons why there's 90s rock bands and hip hop bands and stuff, and I miss that for sure. It was kind of like this sweet age between having the time before you had CDs and all that stuff, but it was before like the internet and the cell phone took off. So you still had that innocence too. So anyway, that's my answer. Number 2. What's the most unusual or surprising job you've ever had or almost had before coaching and podcasting?
So this ties a little bit into number 1, I guess, but I worked as a shop girl at an 80s club.
What is a shop girl? Pray tell.
It was called the Breakfast Club. And it was, I know. I was just walk around with my little tray of shots and listen to 80s music until like 2 a.m, which yeah, which now, me, if I had to stay up till 2 a.m, I'd be like way stressed, but I'd be there, get home, my ears would still be ringing from the music playing. And it was a very interesting crowd because it was an 80s club. So it was a good time.
Dang, that does sound fun. That sounds amazing.
That sounds like a kick in the pants. Let's go.
Yeah.
My almost job was I was almost a pilot in the Air Force.
That's right.
My senior year, the rules changed, and anybody with a non-technical degree lost their pilot slot, but I actually was pretty darn close. I had already gotten through flight screening program. I had already gotten had an incentive ride in an F-16, which was the most violent experience I've ever had in my life. So that would have been an amazing career. But hey, doing the next
We get the
best thing.
benefit of your company now, so I'm kind of glad the Air Force didn't scoop you up, sir. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of odds and ends that I did. Well, one of the things I was kind of, my trajectory was toward journalism. So I did go to I went to the University of Minnesota for 2 years on a journalism track and just realized that wasn't for me. I dropped out of college and joined the Air Force, and that's where we are today. So big change. I know two different paths there, right? 2 different flight plans.
Wow.
All right, next up. If your life had a theme song that played every time you walked into a room, what song would it be?
This is kind of a tough one. Should I continue this momentum?
Please.
I'll go first.
Please. I need a moment.
Okay. So I literally went onto my Spotify and I was like, let me go through my playlist, because when I was teaching spin, I have a bajillion playlists, and the first one I clicked on had Girl on Fire, Alicia Keys, and it's the version with Nicki Minaj, which I actually love because I'll always put that even when I'm running, because it ends up amping me up. And when I did, actually, Coach April, I told you about the Momentum education program I did, where it was like a growth program. And at the end of the leadership program, everyone had a song that the people chose for them, and you kind of sat there, the song played, and everyone would leave comments like celebrating you in the chat while the song played, and that was the song that they chose for me. So when I saw that, I was like, I'll go with that, because there's a lot of great songs that'll pump me up and all the things, but that song always makes me just feel powerful.
Love that. Mine is Long Live by Taylor Swift.
Ah.
You think about the lyrics, having the time of my life, slaying dragons with you, it just, it makes you think about, don't let barriers hold you back. Don't take challenges and lay down for them, and you can have the time of your life.
Yeah, I'm still struggling, team, to figure out what mine is. I just know that my favorite band, I'll go with my favorite band, the band that illustrates my life soundtrack, is Linkin Park. So I mean, not to get super down here, but when Chester died, I specifically remember the date and time that I found out and just lost it. And that's just how deep my love is for this band. It absolutely has like milestones in my life for specific albums and specific songs that came out. And I'm so glad that they are making music again. And I feel like my life kind of mirrors a lot of the things that has been taught in those songs. So everybody has kind of like that soundtrack, right? Well, Linkin Park is my soundtrack to my life. So that's where I'm going to go with that. All right. I've got 2 more here. What's the most ridiculous thing you believed as a kid that you later found out wasn't true?
I'm not going to go with the obvious one that I was coming to my brain. So I'll go with, if you swallow gum, a bubblegum tree will grow in your stomach. Because I don't know if I like literally believed it, but I would always picture like, what does a bubblegum tree growing in my stomach look like? So I'll go with that. And I've swallowed enough gum by accident to know that it's not true.
I've not heard that about bubblegum. I heard that about watermelon seeds. I thought a watermelon, would grow in my stomach. That's a good one, though.
Bubblegum tree.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't have a good one here. I'm just going to go with the obvious, but I'm going to tell you how it went down.
Okay.
I was in 2nd grade and on the playground, and I had a tooth that I lost, And I was telling somebody how I was going to put it under my pillow for the tooth fairy. And this kid told me, the tooth fairy isn't real. It's really your parents. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Really? And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. If the tooth fairy is not real, that means the Easter bunny is not real. And wait a
Oh
minute.
no.
No, it can't be.
Oh.
Like the worst day ever.
Oh, it is. It's such a
Yeah.
letdown. Such a letdown. Well, I would say I'm going to kind of go in the vein with Lauren here. Mine, yeah, I thought bubblegum stayed in your stomach for 7 years. I remember parents and teachers telling us, don't swallow your gum because it won't, it will live in your stomach and just hang out in the corner for 7 years. So, yeah, that's what I'm going with. Yeah. Awesome. All right, last question. If you were invited to be a contestant on any game show in history, which one would you choose and how do you think you would do?
Family Feud.
Oh, yeah. Good one, Lauren. Good one. How would you do, Lauren?
I think I would do
Yeah.
great. I don't know.
Mhm.
I was watching it the other day and I was so upset because it got interrupted for like a news report, and they were just about to give the fourth answer and I was like, I know it. And then I'm like, I didn't want to watch this news report. I wanted to watch Family Feud. I was in a happy place right now. What are you doing to me?
World, you cannot interrupt my game show.
This was wrong. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to be. Steve Harvey's a great host too, but yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Good stuff. Coach
I'm going
Rich?
to date myself and I'm going to go to The Price is Right.
Love.
Okay, that's a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
I think I could actually do pretty good in that. I always felt like I that was easier for me than Jeopardy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking you were going to go with Jeopardy, but I think The Price is Right is an excellent choice.
Yeah.
I'm going all the way back. I'm going to Nickelodeon.
Oh.
Legends of the Hidden Temple. Oh, yeah. I think I can get that. I definitely think I can get that sucker down. Yeah. So if you don't know what it is, it's like an adventure expedition. Like you got to do certain obstacle courses, and it's a hoot. So if there's some older millennials listening in our audience, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I encourage you to go watch a little bit. I actually think they're bringing it back as kind of like a retro kids game. So yeah, keep your eye out. And that is our 5 questions to get to know you. We love doing this because it reminds us that endurance sports may be a huge part of our lives, but it's not the only thing that defines us. We got some weird stories. So hopefully you learned something new, had a few laughs, and maybe even thought about how you would answer some of these questions yourself.
Well, I hope so, because they're going to probably have to answer when we post this out on social media this week. And
Yes.
guys, it was a blast getting to know you guys both better here. I did not know these things about you, or at least some of them.
Whether you wanted to or not.
Exactly. Folks, thanks for listening this week. It's been kooky, it's been fun, but it's been an education. Be sure to follow us at 303 Triathlon and at Grit to Greatness Endurance. And of course, go to iTunes, give us a rating and a comment. We appreciate it and you. Stay tuned, train informed, and enjoy the endurance journey.
For your 303 Endurance Podcast. It's your 303 Endurance Podcast. It's your